Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Integrato's webinar on unlocking the full potential of Microsoft 365. I'm Graciela Edwards, your host for today's session. Joining us are the co-founders of Integrato, Robert Cheney and Andy Cohen. They'll both be sharing their invaluable insights on maximizing the productivity with Microsoft 365. Still have some people trickling in, but let's get started. So before we dive into the content, let's go over a few housekeeping items to ensure a smooth experience for all the attendees. Our promise to you, this isn't death by PowerPoint. We value your time and engagement, so hopefully it'll be an informative and dynamic session for you. To minimize background noise and distractions, all attendees are muted, and we want your input for sure. So share your questions and thoughts in the chat, and we'll cover as many as we can during the Q&A at the end. So what are we covering today? We're going to be exploring where we've seen organizations struggle in their journey adopting Microsoft Cloud and how you can simplify your Microsoft subscriptions. We're going to be demystifying the Microsoft environment for cloud security and exploring those modern work tools to understand the art of possible. Our business is based on our founders and their experiences, and we'd like to introduce you to the founders of Integrato, our CEO, Robert Cheney, and President Andy Cohen.
Thank you, Graciela. Appreciate everyone sharing their time with us today. I think it's important when you think of a company like Integrato is to understand the owners, right? And their vision and what drives them, and ultimately the team that they surround themselves with and helping those in their environment. So when you think of Integrato, it may have only formed a little over 2 years ago, but the vision and the story started over 30 years ago, at least for me, when I became an accountant. And again, just a little background, you noticed I have beans next to a calculator, so we won't go back to medieval times with this story, but ultimately, right, when I look at an accountant, I look at, an individual that's not for compliance and tax and audit, even though that's great. When I started with an accountant, it was more about helping clients, right, really learn about their business and give them insights. And what better way to do that is not with beans, but with the tools and the technology that surround them. So I've made it a mission over the last 20-something years, for those of you that know me and have been a part of this journey, right, to actually continue to use the technologies to help grow the business. What our challenge was is that technology always didn't catch up to the speed of our vision. So we're excited that in some instances, right, where technology keeps changing, the vision's catching up. So with that, on this journey, I realized I couldn't do it alone. I needed a partner who had the same goals and drive, but in some cases approached the vision a little differently. And that's why I teamed up with Andy Cohen, my partner, and want to let him share a little bit about himself.
Thank you, Robert. Good afternoon, everybody. So Andy Cohen, Value Enhancement Consultant. For the better part of 20 years, like Robert, I've been focusing and obsessing, frankly, about aligning people, process, and technology to unlock business value for investors and the shareholders of these organizations. I often find myself in the role of an interpreter because technology without adoption just adds expense. My passion has always been innovation for value, not innovation for shiny new tools. So I spent a lot of time working with private equity, venture capital, family, multifamily offices, and helping their portfolio companies really build that relationship with the technology to further the business and to further the investment thesis for those organizations. Excited to be here, Robert, and I'm having a lot of fun on this journey with you. Let me hand it back to you to talk a little bit about the evolution you've witnessed inside of technology and how it's sort of proliferated over the years.
Sure. So there's a lot on this slide, and I don't expect you to take it all in, but when we look back at really the 3 pillars, right, of what's been near and dear to me as a ERP or accounting systems from my background, the internet and just technology overall, computers, cell phones, etc. Right, we've seen that a lot has changed from the 1980s till today. And in some cases, what I remember back in the 80s were science fiction films are now becoming reality. And when you look at what's shaping in the world, right, with the technology that's coming today and tomorrow, I think that the next 10 years is going to be pretty exciting, right, as we finish up the 2020s and go into the 2030s. So again, we want to share with all this growth comes challenges, right, especially in the business space. So with that, I want to switch over, Graciela, to sort of where we look at Microsoft and their growth in this time period. So as a Microsoft partner, right, and actually partnering with different companies over the years, when we talk about technology and show Microsoft standard slides, right, they always have their terminology and words. And usually finding when I'm talking to clients, they sort of they phase over, like Microsoft Azure, Dynamics, Microsoft. What are all these words? What do they mean? So what we're going to try to show you today is based on your experience and your age, right? A lot of this stuff is more simple than you think. So Azure, right? What really is that? That's what used to be your server closet. And for some companies might still have stuff in there, but it's really the infrastructure and it's the items that are powering the cloud, right? You're just paying for them as you use them versus actually paying for the electricity, right? That's actually sitting in your server room or your closet, right? That's Azure. Dynamics 365 is really Microsoft's terminology for overall business applications, right? ERP, CRM, accounting, right? It's again, the column or the area that I've been sitting in over the many years. But with again, technology, right? We don't need to worry about going and installing a server to work on an ERP system. We light it up with the subscription in today. Microsoft 365, this is what's interesting, right? This is the box that you may have bought years ago from a store, and you actually installed on a disk or a CD your Word, Excel, and Outlook, right? And what's interesting we're finding when we talk to companies is most people are still using those tools, right? Those 3 tools only, even though there's a lot more to uncover under the hood. So again, our goal today is to sort of show you these a little bit more in these 3 areas to give you a little bit about what you know you didn't know. And what really excites us is Copilot, right? You may have, I'm sure everyone sort of watched Microsoft's commercial the other day on the Super Bowl, right? And maybe had no idea what they were talking about or what was going on. But artificial intelligence, right? If you're using the cloud to actually render data to you is the last thing we're going to try to show today. But that's what excites us to really go back to our concept of giving people access to their data, right, and letting them analyze it. This tool is going to make life a lot easier to make that happen. Now, when we talk about technology, right, what we've seen over the years and every time we go visit a client is we see organizations fall into 3 categories of cloud adoption. Right. Again, we have overload of technology that's changed over the years. So if you're a newer organization on the left, right, that started out with a Macintosh, right, or your Apple phone, and you started a business, you may have started with just consumer tools, right, that they didn't have security. And as you grew with your team, each of you took your own tools that you found and worked with, and you sort of amassed a large number of tools that might be all over the place in the cloud. Right. And the goal here is you look back now and say, how do I tie these tools together? And how do I put a roadmap to sort of secure all these tools? Right. Because it's sort of like a chaos from a lot of cloud technology. So that's one business group that we see and trying to bring that together. The next is a company that's maybe been around, around as long as I have or even more, that still is using the servers that are in their closet, right? They're still thinking about the technology the way it was 20 years ago and just hasn't had the time because they've done so well in their business to really understand and absorb what's changed, right, to grow with it. You might be walking around with a cell phone now, right, and actually pulling data, but are you using it in such a secure way that's going to protect you, right? The last is what we hope everyone to achieve, right? It's sort of successfully blending these tools in such a way that you're more productive and ultimately you're in a more secure environment in today's world. So those are the 3 areas that we see. And again, we hope you are falling under the later, but every client's interesting to see how they're using the tools. With that, I'll bring it back to Andy to give you a little bit more details about some of the topics I just mentioned.
Perfect. Thanks, Robert. Well, when we really think about Microsoft 365, I think it's important to define what is it. It is not just those Office applications that Robert was mentioning. I promise we're not going to dig into Excel and Outlook and PowerPoint in its simplest sense, but we're really going to talk about M365 as a complete integrated platform for apps, security, collaboration, and compliance, all under an interconnected setup. Right. So when you look at this, and I know you didn't register for just the context of those basic productivity tools, so I'm going to try my best to not get too technical and in the weeds, but I really want to introduce you to a high level concept of what this stack of technology, this interconnected platform is, and how, when properly harnessed and adopted in your businesses, it really can drive value for your organization. So I added this slide for effect. Again, so much more than just apps you've grown to depend on. As Robert has mentioned, I too have been waiting for the technology maturation to reach this exciting time. There was times where we were creating all of these on-premise hardwares and then stitching together all of these disparate tools. This is now finally a point in our ecosystem where we can get all of these necessary tools and protections under one platform in order to capitalize on signals that are going to help you protect and manage your digital estate or your tenant or technology platform. And doing this in such a way where we're bundling all these offerings together to help you collaborate and modernize your technology. Now, before you transition, Graciela, obviously you can kind of see this as a bit of a split slide. On the left-hand side is, reflecting that M365 connects to all these productivity tools with a simple premise and moniker of your data connected on any device the way you want to work. But as you start to peel this back and look to the right side of your display, you're going to notice that there is far more that M365's collection of platform offers, and you have different workflows and tools and technology for different roles and items inside of your business. Now, go ahead, Graciela, you can transition. I can't tell you how many times Robert, Graciela, the team, and I have come in to audit subscriptions and license to learn that many of our customers were sort of improperly aligned, or many prospects that reached out to us were improperly aligned with the features that they were ultimately paying for. So what this slide was really designed to illustrate, again, quick broad strokes, is that this is how small to mid-sized businesses can bundle offerings within M365 and reduce the overall cost of the services that are needed to protect the tenant or that digital estate. And the best part about this is that when you are inside of Microsoft 365, all of these solutions are designed to work well together. So this saves you the complexities and the pain of trying to tie together disparate tools and technologies in order to get real-time information in a way that's actionable. As you can see in the top right corner, Integrado's tagline is technology made simple. So as we go through this, we're going to help simplify this for you. And I hope that many of you will take us up on our offer to help you with the complexity of those subscriptions. Make sure that we review the feature sets you need and care about, and to make sure that you're properly sizing your expense for these features. So I promised I wouldn't get too in the weeds technical, but on the next couple slides, I'm going to touch on some technical concepts. I'm positive that you're going to thank me when you see the next slide for not getting too technical. My objective is to help you understand that the security capabilities behind the M365 platform and these apps is very akin to a glacier, where 70% of its mass is under the waterline and out of sight. Wow, a lot of connected tools to protect a modern business with today's threat climate. Businesses and operators and entrepreneurs, executives, they need a path that's less complicated, a platform that's going to help them thwart attacks without any interaction on their behalf. Things that are going to be done proactively, preventatively, in order to simplify the way you and your employees are operating inside of this. So you may recognize a lot of logos on that screen. You may even have some of them deployed. I'm not suggesting that we're uprooting everything. I want to extend to you the art of possible of just how all-encompassing this integrated platform has maturated to. So often when we talk about M365 from a deployment or from simplifying technology, we're speaking to clients about four functional pillars. Many are aware of the features they power. Some of you may not. So when Integrato approached our foundation baseline to help deploy this technology for our customers, we actually straddle two terms that Microsoft uses quite frequently. One of those terms is what's referred to as the modern workplace. That's really fulfilling on the premise of remote work and secure collaboration. But the other side of their security model is something called zero trust architecture or zero trust networking design. To achieve a balance of collaboration and security, Integrato has created our foundation baseline that brings some of the best configs and feature sets from those two methods of securing a tenant or your digital estate. Again, with the premise being that we want to help this system be configured in such a way that it remediates and thwarts threats before they ever reach your front door. So again, without further ado, let's get into these four pillars, because it's these pillars together that establish the cyber controls and the protections that are going to help you unlock the art of possible with these modern tools. Robert touched briefly on Copilot and artificial intelligence, but we have to make sure we have proper safeguards so that that technology and that exciting technology can be used responsibly. So when you're looking at these four pillars, it really all starts with the identity protection, what we call Entra, right? The Entra Active Directory is the start of it all. No longer does data stay where you save it. When Robert showed some of the imagery earlier about the server rooms and the closet, we used to wall off a garden and protect access to information, right? But now someone can access that information, drop it into an email, throw it into Dropbox, share a link with someone, and next thing you know, that file or your data has lapped the globe 12 or 15 times, and fragments are stretched across data centers all over. So what we're ultimately introducing as a premise of identity protection is to make sure that we can manage your identity and the way you access into these tools, so that the protections are no longer a walled garden, but the protections live within the file itself, so that when you share it, if someone doesn't have the identity or the access privilege, that becomes an encrypted file that no one would have access to. So that identity and access management pillar, that first one, that's really the start of all of these modern and zero trust architectures that Microsoft's promoting. As we move through these functional pillars, we then have to talk about what is some of these larger threat surfaces that we're always dealing with. And Defender is really there to help defend and protect in that area. Email and applications are often one of your larger threat surfaces. Data moves in and out of the organization, data moves in and out of these walled gardens, and we're able to configure settings in order to help you through to protect this information and to make sure that it's protecting you even while you're sleeping. When you think about zero trust architecture or modern workplace, one of the most important pieces of information is to feed these advanced security features signals and data points. Your device or your endpoint, your computer, your PC, your laptop is really something that has a tremendous amount of data. We know where it's at, how it's connected, whether or not it's been updated or patched, and these are all really important items. What I'm really excited about from Microsoft 365 is that finally the PCs and the endpoints have become very similar to what the experience is of a cell phone. We all have different cell phones. I'm sure we can debate over Android and Apple and different versions. But the reality of it is we become accustomed that the hardware is somewhat disposable. It's somewhat replaceable. If we have a problem with the device, we make sure we get a backup. We buy a new piece of hardware, we sign in, and it restores from a cloud backup, and it's done without a whole lot of tech support or expense. Well, now through Microsoft Intune and this third pillar, we're finally able to bring that type of technology into a zero-touch deployment to help you manage the complexities of getting the proper equipment to your staff and to handle easy backups and replacements in the event of a hardware failure or an issue. right? And then, of course, last but not least, the fourth pillar is what we call Purview. That's Microsoft Purview, but it's really about protecting data and compliance. If you're thinking about the foundation for large language model or artificial intelligence, right? ChatGPT, Copilot, etc., we really need to make sure that we can safeguard where your data is going and what it could have access to. We're going to touch on a little bit of that when we get down into the Copilot section, but it would be very dangerous if a frontline employee was able to query through artificial intelligence what is on the executive's calendar or what files they're working. So making sure that we have robust protections for data compliance is really, really important as we bring in some of these exciting new technologies to the fold. So I know often when we start thinking about security in the Microsoft world, many people are looking for a simple way to self-assess. How am I doing? Am I secure? Have I set these features up the right way? Very similar again to a cell phone. If you go into the settings menu of your Android or your Apple phone, you've got thousands of different settings and configurations. So while the phone may be capable of being very secure, it is really predicated on the assessments. Microsoft has created a way to ultimately help you self-assess your own score. Now, this isn't end-all perfect, giving you every single scenario of an advanced penetration test or an advanced security assessment, but it really does give you a quick pulse to be able to understand not only how you rank amongst your peers of similar size and industry, but how your tenant, your digital state, is ultimately providing you some of these security protections. Now, I'm going to show you some ways to actually bring this up on screen. And Robert, if you want to talk through just a point or two on that while I'm getting prepared for screen share, I will bring this up and give everybody what they came for, which is some practical context.
Absolutely. And when we look back of where we've been over the last few years, we go back to COVID almost again as a way where companies were sort of forced to adopt some cloud technologies while still living in the realm of the walled garden. And what we're finding is a lot of companies opened up a back door and didn't realize it, right? They put on some cloud services, gave you a license, and didn't realize what they gave you to work with, right? So the users started moving files, doing stuff, getting it out there. So when you look at this secure score, right, you're never going to be 100%, or it's going to be like getting into Fort Knox, but you want to be above 50%, right? And we're finding clients as low as 22%, again, just because they didn't realize or know what they didn't know. So we're hoping at least we could show you, if you're using a Microsoft tenant, right, where you can go get that information and at least assess yourself at a basic level.
So is my screen share coming through for everybody, Graciela?
Yes.
Perfect. So where I'm navigating to is simply office.com. This is sort of your homepage in your cloud environment. This has got some basic navigation elements to this that are always going to be static and always in the same place. I do recommend that many of you bookmark and pin this as one of your default opening tabs when you open a web browser. I am using a private version of Edge just to be able to isolate to environments. So when you're looking at this, if you want to navigate to your secure score, there are many ways to get there. Of course, in the previous slide, I created a direct link, but if you're in here and you have the rights to administrative sessions, you're actually able to go through the admin prompt, which will take you into this menu. And when you see the admin side of this, you'll have a security icon right here in the admin centers. Now, I wanted to make a quick point here. I often say that this is akin to a glacier where, 70% of its mass is below the water. As you can see here, looking at all admin centers, each of these different sections are designed to work together to provide you this robust protections and security posture that Microsoft offers. But when we go ahead and go into the security center, this is security.microsoft.com. If you guys want to navigate to that directly, when you come through in the homepage, you're going to notice that you have kind of a central command to get a quick pulse on what the security posture is in your tenant across some of your different threat surfaces. What you'll see right here is a Microsoft Secure Score. This is in a demo tenant, and you will see that I have three basic areas here: identity, data, and apps. Now, under most scenarios, again, 4 pillars, we're also going to include devices here. But again, this is a demo tenant. I'll show you in a live production our actual environment. Yes, Integrado lives on M365 like many of you. We do eat our own cooking. We do believe that this is the best bang for the dollar in the market today. So your secure score, without getting too far into this, would be right here or down the left menu. You can actually navigate to the secure score page and actually drills in just a bit more data while this is loading. This is going to show you your category. This is also going to show you your breakdowns. This will give you some recommendations on things you can do. And then you can adjust and filter these widgets. There is a trend and some scenarios in here where you can look at peer data and sort of how you score against other companies your size. And we can show you that individually if some of you want some help in kind of going through that. In order to kind of give you some context, coming back to the M365 homepage, we refer to this as a waffle menu, kind of a quick area to jump to some frequent files or some, frequently used apps. When you click on these, it opens a new web version of the page. It is very important that I let you all know that I'm showing this exclusively inside the web tools. I'm not using desktop tools. I am not running downloaded applications. This is purely just in the web. But the premise of M365 is whether you're in a desktop app or whether you're in a cloud app, it's your data, the way you want to work on any device. So getting into this search menu or this start menu for a moment here, you'll notice that I have a very quick item here to create files. This allows me to get to some of these commonly used applications across the M365 ecosystem, and I can quickly just create a new file and then save it directly in the cloud locations that I would like. I can also look at a customized view of my content. So I can see recently open files, things that were shared with me or others, things that I favorited or pinned, but this is a wonderful way for you to quickly connect with the information. As I often hear people say, they struggle to find things that they've saved in the cloud. And that is because no longer are you bound by hierarchical storage, right? The accounting folder with the subfolder for AR, AP, and financials, right? And then internal folders by month. This is something that you can actually group and use the deep search indexing that Microsoft offers to help you find some of this information. You can also get into a feed view here, which will help you connect with messages and content and meetings that went on that you might not have participated in to help you bring a lot of the information here. Again, demo tenant, limited information, but if you on your own tenant were to navigate to your homepage, right, your office.com and get to that feed, you will definitely see a lot more information that is here. And then last view that I'll cover briefly is your apps view. As you know, Microsoft 365 is far more than just getting into Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. You have Teams, which we're going to talk about extensively, many, many other tools, OneNote, OneDrive, and as you get down to the bottom, there may be some things here you haven't seen before. Things like Loop, Planner, Whiteboard, and Stream all bring you a rich experience so that you can be in this interconnected platform to drive through this. So as I go through it, it was a quick touch point. I do want to talk about search for a moment. A lot of times when you click on this, there's a 2-level search that will help you get the best experience. All of you are, certified experts in searching through Google and getting the information you want. We've been ingrained in that for the last 20 years or so. But getting into this search, just trying to find something like this formal letter, no cover, right? This is a quick semantic search, very similar to when you start typing in Google and it's giving you some suggested results. But if I click down for show more results, now I'm getting into an in-depth indexing of searching around the tenant. And I have some automatic slicing at the top that can help me connect to the locations I'm seeking. So I can look at all results. I can isolate it to just files or SharePoint sites or news posts, even messages from in some of my communication apps. And of course, you can also filter this by the exact type of file you want. So if you haven't really played with some of the contextual search capabilities in Microsoft 365, we certainly encourage you to go down that path and really help you find information that you're looking for faster and to help you with productivity. Now, there's arguably no more valuable collaboration tool in Microsoft 365 than Microsoft Teams. So if I get into Microsoft Teams, again, I won't get too into the weeds as a training, but just as a quick navigation item, I am looking at this in a web view in a browser. I still keep my waffle menu to bounce to other apps if I need to. And then I got this main left menu here. Activity is a quick summary of all the activities that have been presented since your last session here. Your chat, which many of you view Teams as chat and meeting software, Teams is so much more. Inside of the chat, we always look at this as your instant messaging tool. This is not where you archive data. This is not where you're saving it for future compliance reasons. This is really meant for quick chats that can be blown away. But there are some interesting tools in order to keep some of these threaded conversations. So if I'm in here and I click some of the things like reply, it's going to help me with bubbles that you've probably seen in Slack and some other communication tools, just to help grab something from an earlier conversation and drive context to this. So chat still there. You can chat one-to-one. You can chat one-to-many. You can chat in a small group. But ultimately, these are meant to, blow away. When you get into the team section of this, this is when this really changes and starts to open up what we refer to as this collaboration canvas. So when you're looking at this, each of these teams are actually what is referred to as a Microsoft 365 group. It's a subset of information that's connected with common data and a whole bunch of security policies that allow us to collaborate and share safely without having to worry about tracking all of the little details. This allows you to set these configurations. So when you're
Andy,
in this,
if you just wanted just one thing to bring up, I
Sure.
think that's important, right? Is we find a lot of our clients, right, and opportunities where they've seen this online, they understand it, but they really can't envision teams, right, that make sense for them, right? What we'll say for is just the word team, right? Who you collaborate with, who you're spending a lot of time with or working with should be your basis for your groups. It could be internal within your company, like we have here, accounting, or it could be like in our case with clients that we're working on projects. So it doesn't have to be just internal, but it's really about just how, if you were to go to their office or sit with them and collaborate in a conference room, it's putting everything together. And that's what I think people sometimes need to really understand how it works for them, as well as we know people, are creatures of habit. Right. Again, a lot of you on the phone, if you were to raise your hand or admit, right, you're probably still working on your computers with emails when it first came out, right, in Windows 95, 3.1. So we're just trying to show you an example, again, of how to potentially collaborate with new tools. And within our company, right, individuals of different levels and of different age groups, right, actually collaborate a little different, right? Those that are brought up on surfing are quick to quickly search for something. Those of us like me that were used to that file structure, right, may take a different approach. So working with your team to collaborate together is what we found is really what takes the adoption. It takes some time, right, for each group.
Yeah, Robert, great point. And as we go through this, I mean, we could run an hour session just on the collaboration potential. But my objective here is just to share a little bit of the art of possible on how a proper architected foundation inside of Teams can really help you with your collaboration internally. So these team channels, right? Team is the high level item, which is an M365 group. And then these are your channels below. When you see a regular channel like this, then the membership of the channel is identical to the group. When you notice one has a little lock here or is a private, this allows you to create a subset of the membership. So maybe you have a large marketing staff, but you want to have a subset of leadership that's maybe only a couple folks. You can keep them connected to all of the information, but not have to create a separate team for them. So there are some other security items of what private does that we'll touch in on individual questions or when we sit with some of you individually. But this is, an important noteworthy item on this side. When you're inside of the general messaging here, what you're going to see is I'm starting across the top here on the post sides of this. You're all familiar with chat. You're all familiar with how how you can message. But unlike chat, you don't have the ability to run a reply to a prior thread unless you're in the thread. So if you think back to what I showed you in chat, when you kind of right click one of the messages and you hit this reply to bubble this out, inside of the team, this is meant for storage. This is meant to retrieve later. So everything here is threaded. What I see often happening, and many times when I'm out there helping prospects and helping customers, is everyone starts a new post instead of replying in context to the thread. When you start a new post, you have the ability to add subject lines. You can create banner images, announcements, but this subject line really helps you ground the indexing feature to search and retrieve later. So much like many technologies that you deploy, a little bit of forward thinking in your architecture and goals really does help this stick from an adoption standpoint. As I mentioned earlier, shiny new tools without adoptions just drive expense. So we really want to make sure that people learn from the lessons we had to figure out the hard way and really use these tools to the full potential on this side. So, making sure that you reply to message threads, and then it'll collapse the messages and keep your feed very, very clean. Now, I'm going to jump quickly here into some of these other areas because, again, as Robert was mentioning, there's so much extensibility of team to create a collaboration that is inside your tenant versus doing everything by email and trying to find messages in other mailboxes. So you, of course, have your posts and your collaboration, and then you can get into your files section. So inside files would be a view of all the files tied into this group. Again, demo environment, so very, very limited data that's in this one. But you would ultimately see a list of files the way you would in OneDrive or any of your normal file views. The difference is that this actually is wired through Microsoft SharePoint. In fact, Teams' entire architecture is SharePoint bound. So when we're in this, you'll notice that you can open in SharePoint directly, and you can bring a lot of the data protection elements that SharePoint has to offer directly into these groups and channels. You can also stitch additional applications and tools. So in this particular case, I actually stitched a OneNote notebook for this group in sales and marketing for them to have a notebook section for general or conferences, promotions, distributor information. And again, this is all isolated to the membership of this team. Now, we don't stop there because this is all about an interconnected platform. So we don't just want to bring in basic office tools. We also want to bring in the ERP side of the business and these line of business apps. So the old adage of, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, has kind of maturated with the technology. Now, it's not an old school stale report. People want interactive dashboards, things they can drill down with, things they can get additional information to make an informed and deliberate business decision. So Robert and I stitched just a couple elements here so you could get an example of how Power BI can bring a rich data visualization using Contoso's data app for sales performance. And of course, I can drill down into this data, I can alter the views, but I'm exposing it without ever leaving Teams. So again, how do I find the things I'm looking for? If we stitch it and connect it to the collaboration canvas, well, then people can really connect with the data. We can have comments, feedbacks, and it can feed directly into the post so that you never leave the group you're collaborating with. Of course, I can expand this. I can add things like revenue opportunities, other views, and these views can be gradated based on the membership. So for example, in a general membership, I may want to limit some of the data as to where in an executive view, I'm going to give them some hidden fields and some additional information, right? So these would be all things that can be done with this, but it does not stop here.
Andy, just to tie into that a little bit, right? Before we go to the other apps per se, right? If we were talking again about a scenario with ERP, right? That's my world of accounting that used to be isolated in a separate program. If we said, hey, we have an accounting channel, right? Where we're collaborating for accounts payable or customers for sales. So if you open up the accounting, right? See all channels, PG accounting, right? Now Business Central and some of the other tools allow us to render without saying, hey, I need a list of reports. If you don't mind going to payables, for example, you will see we can just bring in the vendors, right? We can bring in other tools directly in there without saying, hey, I'm going to save a report last month of what the vendor balance is, right? It will open right up and render. So Microsoft, again, is blending these cloud tools now that they're all together. So you don't have to do extra reporting and all this other stuff we had to do 5 years ago, right? It's seaming these tools together. That's why we think of it as, again, a cornerstone or a hub to get the information you need for that team that you're working with, right? We don't have to say, go to another icon, go to Business Central, and you get it. So
yeah, no more navigate to this page, follow this breadcrumb, right? We can direct a straight link, or we can pin something for them to really collaborate inside of. Which is fantastic. Now, if I come back into this one for a moment, I just want to show you the extensibility that this top bar of tabs or pinned applications can drive through. Of course, anything that you have inside of the Microsoft tool, if I want to display a web page, or if I want to bring in OneNote or an Excel file, a PowerPoint presentation, all of that easily pinned for sure. But the item that I also want to show you is that we understand we live in a little more of an interconnected world. So at times, maybe we need to bring in other lesser known tools, right? Things like Power Apps, or maybe a mind mapping tool, or maybe getting into DevOps or Jira or other tools that some of your different departments would really come to use and trust because you've worked on them for years. So you can still anchor it in your digital platform, right? Your Microsoft 365 platform, but you can extend that collaboration canvas to really help them connect with the information and solve the where do I go find this? Everything is built inside of the location that they're looking for. We also have very rich dashboards around adoption and utilization that we would recommend pinning in some of these areas. Now, I'm going to show you something really neat for a moment, just to expand this art of possible for all of you. So I mentioned that Teams is actually backed on SharePoint's architecture. And you will notice that there's a lot of interplay between the two apps. So what I'm going to show you is I'm in this Precision Group demo channel, and I'm in an actual channel here that is listed as private, and I'm going to connect it to a site. So what this is actually doing is rendering a SharePoint site, but inside of Teams. Now I can start bringing rich data like news posts and announcements and ways of handling change management, cultural communications. I can drive it here contextually in the group that I'm collaborating with to make sure that they can find this 6 months from now when it really matters. Now, if I were to I'm in Teams right now, still living in Teams. But if I were to jump over to SharePoint, one would notice that I'm in very much the same thing I just displayed. Now, you can customize these layouts. Many of you know SharePoint as an intranet that has infinite customizations. I kept this very simple in a demo tenant, but the key item that I wanted you to understand is that this interoperability is connected to Teams. This exists in Teams. This is just another view. Some businesses and prospects that we talk to are very Teams centric. Other ones are a little more SharePoint centric. This creates an adoption path for you in either medium. But it gets even cooler from there. If we were to move into the documents view, and I were to just look at something like this confidential data, many of us are burdened with protecting sensitive information, some of it more regulated than others, PHI, HIPAA data, things like this. We can now start to bring in those data compliance tags and start showing some of the information in here. So of course, this is just a sample document, tells me to modify by whom. We can also add sign-off status. So if I wanted to sort of right-click and I wanted to request the sign-off, we can create simple workflow automation right inside of your view at any level without involving development, just to create an approval queue. So I could say something like, I'm going to request the sign-off quickly. I want to send this over to Robert, have him kind of weigh in on the document, make sure he signs off on my draft. Right now, I'm not going to sit and wait for this to render, but that would ultimately be how this is. I can also add things like retention labels or sensitivity flags. Beyond that, I can also get into creating rules. So say I want to create a rule for, hey, tell me when one of these column datas change, or tell me when a new file was added, or when a new file was deleted. I can have this take action, like restore or email or save. I could also have this notify and alert. This way, I don't feel the burden of being in every single location in every team at all times. We can also get into a more formal alert me, and we can use the SharePoint architecture to say, okay, when these things happen, send to this person. I want an email or an SMS message, and I want to know, hey, when anything changes or when a certain person does, right? I want to know right away, or I want a daily summary, or just give this to me once a week to look at. So all of these simple triggers and methods can help you have an easier and more exciting opportunity to interact with this technology. Now I'm going to tab over and I'm actually going to show all of you a real live production. I mentioned that, in Integrado, we do eat our own cooking. We do believe in this tool. We deploy it internally and we use it to run our operation as well. So if you're kind of looking at this, here's a quick view of our secure score. You'll notice that we also have device signals here because we manage hardware. And you're also going to see that comparison I was mentioning earlier, where I can see our score is sitting at, just under 75 out of 100, where organizations of similar size and industry are averaging around 48. So we're definitely ahead of the curve. But I want to temper all of your expectations. 100% secure score is a bit of a fallacy. You're always going to make concessions for security in order to operate the business the way you need to drive production. So no one's really going after 100%. I have gone up to 96 and 97, and it's about disablement at that point. So balanced security is really this approach. But when we get to that SharePoint architecture that I was referring to, again, notice I'm in SharePoint. I'm connected to Teams. So I could view this in Teams or I could view this in SharePoint. We've created a little bit of a custom layout. Now, I have all of our internal departments linked together just to make navigation amongst them a little easier. But when I get into the marketing side of this, I wanted a quick way for all of our consultants and staff to make sure that they could connect with marketing resources, getting their business QR codes instead of printing business cards, getting information on how to use our logo files or getting started with our brand, even getting down to quick linking templates and guides that they can go into to help them connect with their presentations, keeping the brand intact. I can publish events like the one we're all on right now to let everybody know it's coming, or connect videos from around our ecosystem, or even channels and different locations from other artifacts around our social footprints. So this is a wonderful way to be able to communicate and interact. I can still get into my team's conversations. I can still access documents, notebooks, but this allows me just a different method of collaborating with the team. And you'll see that this is consistent across different departments. So in our professional services, we were talking about empowering our project managers, and we were also quick linking information that contain resources that they need in order to fulfill their role in professional services. All of this being interconnected, all of this being easy to access. Now, we don't stop there. We also like to put things in, like ways to help our team start to get accustomed to the technology that they have at their fingertips, right? So this would be an example of a learning pathway that we actually put under our learning channel specific to Microsoft that allows us to, have this real-time curated by Microsoft, all of the different scenarios, all of the different products. I know many people have asked me, what is Loop? How do I use it? Is it worth it? Right? Well, we can extend this out. And when they click on Loop, they can get right into Microsoft's curated information. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an exposure to just what's possible with this collaboration canvas. But that, again, big key takeaway on this side is that when we're in these sites, these are all connected to Teams. It's continuing to fulfill the promise of your data, your way, securely on any device.
Andy, just to break on that for something I think that's important, a lot of people are communicating still with emails, right? I have an announcement, I have something, right? They send an email. And then you wonder why people are like, I never read the email. I haven't even read it, right? So analytics, I think, is what really drives this as well. So you can get feedback on who's doing what or why.
And they can interact and comment here as well, Robert.
Yeah. Just something else to bring in there.
Yeah, which we find is really, really valuable. Now, Robert, I know we're really excited now that we've kind of shown some baseline information with Microsoft 365 and its capabilities. I think a lot of people are here to understand what Copilot may bring to the table. We've all seen the proliferation of ChatGPT. It has actually eclipsed even the pace in Teams growth to 120 million users. So Microsoft being a 49% shareholder in Chat and bringing this into this safe ecosystem, I'd love to take a couple minutes and really showcase some of the Copilot functionality, even if it's just at an introductory level for today.
Absolutely. Did you want to share the one, or would you like me to share a couple?
Yeah, why don't you share a couple, and then I'll get a couple screens ready and we'll show the team just a couple different deviations. So I'm going to stop my share for you here.
All right, and I'll share mine. So Copilot, again, we look at technology and say, what is it going to do when I turn it on, right? And everyone is like, oh, the cool factor. Again, if you saw the Microsoft commercial or you've seen other videos about what chat can do and what does, great. What we look at it and say, again, if you turn on Copilot inside your Microsoft 365 environment, you're sharing everything that you've worked in there with AI. Right now, Microsoft says, hey, they are going to protect you, right? But it also means you have to do some of your own rules to protect your data, right? Remember, talked about data tagging. What if you want to, you save a lot of information with HIPAA, you have social security numbers, medical information. What if you don't want Copilot to find that because you've tagged it as secure, right? So what we're saying with executives is, let executives play with it for now, right? If you get a license, don't let everyone have it. Start working with it as Microsoft and everyone start to adopt the technology. Now it is cool, and I started playing with it. And what I would say I love about it is, as an executive, you're jumping from meeting to meeting, right? You don't have time to even look up something, right? Or you don't have time to read a long document. So to give a couple examples where we can, right? I have downloaded, for example, a file that was Microsoft or Coca-Cola's transcript, right, about their meeting, right? And I'm like, well, I don't want to read this thing. Tell me more about it. So if I come over here and said, get the key information from a file, right? And I search for it, if it didn't pull it, just give me the transcript of Coca-Cola and tell me what the key points are. Now, if you enable Copilot in your email, you can actually summarize the latest emails, right? A long chain of back and forth. You're like, oh my God, I don't want to read, these 20 emails. Summarize it. So they're coming up with cool ideas across the board. What I've seen and what I enjoy about it is its ability to save my time, right? And just give me the highlights, right? So this is an example of it just grabbing that information and pulling from it. We have it attached to Teams. So every time we do a meeting, right, for those of us who don't like taking notes, we can actually have Copilot give us a summary of all the transcripts as well. So that's one example that's sort of neat. And if I come over here and I go to my prompts, right, I can look at other stuff. So they have different categories of prompts, like ask a question or create something or catch up. I can get a little bit more, creative and say, hey, generate a list of ideas for a team building event, right? For turn off our cat, for Integrado at Walt at Disney. Type here on the fly. So just, I want to go to an event. I want to invite everyone in Integrado, Costa Country to Disney World. What can we do for team building events? So it's not just going to say, oh, Disney World does this. It's going to look at Integrado, right, and what we have. And it's going to say, hey, we want to do things related to where we are dealing with technology or other stuff, right? So it's going to actually look at our team and come up with content. One example, something that's interesting, again, that is another cue that we could look at is, again, I'm the CEO and I'm working with Graciela a lot, and I need to meet with her and see what's going on. So I'm just going to put this out there. I'm going to say, give me the latest of information from Graciela. Right. So I want to put her on the fly here and say, what has she been up to that we've been working on together? And it's going to go to her emails. It's going to go to her task. It's going to go to all the files she worked on, and it's going to give me everything that she's been working on, right? That could catch me up to speed, or in some cases, find out what she's doing, right? So What's interesting, and the reason I'm putting this in there is, again, if you turn on Copilot and someone in the field is just asking a question about what you're doing, how are you going to make sure they don't know what's going on, right? So with all tools, right, be pragmatic about it. Consider ultimately this tool as something you should, you know, take a little slow, right, versus giving everyone license to it. Make sure you're prepared for it.
Robert, I'm going to steal screen share back for one moment, and I promise I'm going to keep this brief because I know
Yep.
we're getting close to our timeline. As I mentioned earlier, office.com, I went to the Create tab, and I just wanted to create a simple PowerPoint presentation. I'm opening this up inside of the web, and you're going to notice that I also have Copilot stitched right here, right? So please wait while we load the presentation. So as Copilot comes up, this is actually becoming a bit of your virtual assistant inside of the applications you've come to know. So if I put this in here and say, hey, create a presentation about change management and the importance of a well laid out plan, right? By simply clicking on this is going to go through, this is going to curate some information, and it's going to generate a slide presentation as a starting point. We love artificial intelligence and large language for the simplicity of getting started when you're stuck, or getting some inside information or some outside context. Here it is pulling just some quick slides together. Now, I happened to do this twice, so I was messing with this earlier in case this didn't come through. So different prompts, different ways in, created different outcomes. So a lot of times you could say, look, I'm not looking for the answer. I'm approaching this problem. What are the questions that I should be asking? And it can help you with your approach to being able to address and isolate, dig a fire trench, kind of consider your plan moving forward. So I view it as a wonderful productivity tool, is not only time savers, but also to help you ideate or to get started when you're a little stuck or you're not sure where to start. Now, with that being said, Robert, I would like to show other things in Word and Excel and other locations, but for the sense of time, I'm going to go ahead and drive this back over to Graciela so that we can stay on our time. I know everyone took an hour out of their busy schedules to come join us and hear about some of the exciting tools and features in M365.
Absolutely. And again, just to sort of wrap this up, right? Again, we approached this, Andy and I, from different avenues, but we came together at a point where, again, we're using the tools, right, from different approaches, but the tools are now interweaved so that we can work with them together. And that's been something that took years to ultimately get to the point, right? And by helping clients now that we're not installing an accounting system on a server, but we're putting it inside the cloud. This is where, when we had access to the client's cloud to work on Business Central, we started going in there and talking to the client and realizing that there's a lot of pains they're having, right? And they didn't know about, and or traditional IT individuals, right, may have not informed them or been able to communicate how it could help them in their business. So this is where we break down and hear some of these common points, right? Some of these challenges, and where we just started working with our own clients, realizing that there is an opportunity to help others, right? And that's where we look at going. And we've ramped up the team, right? We're still a small group, right? We're not claiming to be experts in everything, and we still like to ultimately call in other resources as need be. But what we're looking, like I said, is to be able to be that sort of orchestrator to work with you and ultimately help you take these different tools and stitch them together to help you grow, to get out of, again, working potentially in the 90s and or being prepared for Copilot and what else is coming, and be a little bit prepared for it. Like we said, change is coming fast, and as we keep saying, it gets faster, right? So this is where we hope, again, we can help our clients and opportunities to sort of blend this information together, even if we approach it from different ends. So with that, Graciela, please.
Thank you,
Wrap her up.
Robert. Yeah, so what are our next steps? Well, we're offering a complimentary consultation throughout February and March. So you'll want to scan this QR code that you see on the screen here with your phone. You'll access the Microsoft form, and it's just 3 questions. Go ahead and fill that out to submit and request your consultation, and we'll reach out to you to schedule at your earliest convenience. During these sessions, we're going to dive into analyzing your team's current workflow to identify those opportunities for productivity improvements. We'll assess your secure score, discuss any vulnerabilities in your tenant to just ensure that maximum security. And we'll also review your Microsoft subscriptions to see if there's any potential savings there. That's something that I usually work on, and we see anywhere from 20 to 40% savings. Lately, it's been on the higher end opportunities just because people are not using either the right subscriptions or things just haven't been cleaned up in the environment. And that's where we can help and analyze that data for you.
And Graciela, I'm just going to interject one point on this side. You know, look, we live by our brand and our taglines. I mean, our objective is technology made simple. So if you take us up on this complimentary consultation, in addition to what Graciela is communicating with you, our commitment is that we're going to have a real business conversation, right? This isn't technology for tech's sake or tools for tools' sake. This is really about how do you maximize the value in the subscriptions you're already paying, and how do you have some basic business context to be able to understand how these features and applications fit inside your unique workflows. No two businesses operate the same. And this is what has me so excited about the Microsoft platform, is that it's not only fully integrated, but that it allows for deviations in the way one company's workflow is supported versus another.
So we really do hope that you'll take advantage of the consultation and see what the art of possible is for your organization. And we want to thank you guys for joining us today. I know we're running out of time. Let me see if there are any questions here that we can answer. Really just one question I think that we can get to right now pretty quickly, Robert and Andy. Can we use our Macs with M365?
Absolutely, yes. So the Microsoft 365 platform, when it comes down to devices, certainly works well with all Windows applications or Windows devices. But yes, it does have connections into the Mac operating system, as well as your mobile flavors for Android and iOS. It even extends into Chromebooks and some flavors of Linux. So unequivocally, yes, Graciela, the M365 platform can manage devices across multiple operating systems and still bring these feature sets and protections to the front lines.
And Graciela, I think to expand on that, right? Microsoft used to think, right, we're going to dominate the world and get rid of everyone away from Macs and Google and everything. They realized a while ago that it was better to play with them, right, than to play alone. So if you even look at the new version of Teams, I just saw a feature that said you can use the new Apple, right, glasses or the new 3-dimensional or Meta. So yes, you can, not everyone uses Microsoft 365. Some use Salesforce. So because it is in the cloud, right, and it doesn't need to be installed on a Microsoft computer anymore, right, you can cross platforms very easily. And I think that gives you the best of all worlds, right, connecting the dots together.
Thank you. So once again, everybody, thank you for being a part of our webinar today. We hope you found it valuable, and we really look forward to connecting with you again soon. So hopefully you filled out that consultation. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.